Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best?
The start of the crypto market meltdown. Bitcoin top in is what a lot of people are feeling, but I'm here to tell you, looking at what this has done in the last day and the feelings today with this move just melting to the downside, it feels like it's never going to stop. So what is the reason for this? Why is the market shaking so many people out? Is the top end? What should we be doing in Bitcoin, but also in the altcoins? I have some critical data I want to share with you today to make sure you stay on the right side of the trend. So with that being said, everybody, as you roll in here, I want to see a GA for good afternoon. I want to see a bull or a bear, meaning if you think this is, how about this, dip or crash? Is this a dip, meaning you're bullish, or is this a crash? So GA for me, dip. And last thing I bought was this morning, and I shared it in the Discord. I bought Hemi, which is I'm not advising anybody to buy it. It's just something, a very low market cap play in the Bitcoin DeFi space. And I thought I'd take a flyer there. Again, I am not recommending you buy it. It's just I'm being transparent with you all, like you all are being with me. So looking at this market, let's look exactly at what's going on, because the market meltdown from up here at these highs, 125.1, that wasn't the high, all the way up here, 126.2, 126.3. That is incredible. Is the top end? Well, let's go over to the data. And again, this is going to be a little bit shorter stream today because I'm going to consolidate the information for you so you know exactly what to be watching for. First off, we were just the other day, we were not at $4 trillion. I mean, as early as, look at this right here on, what date is this? October 1st. So 7 days ago, we were under $4 trillion. We made it all the way up here to about $4.3 trillion. What I'm seeing just on the most basic principles here of a bull trend is a bullish impulse to the upside that is not yet revisited and tested these previous range highs here. Again, the most basic TA that I could even bring out right now is that level right there. We're not even at the start of a bearish structure. So what do we need to be looking at right now in this market where it feels like it's about to absolutely melt to the downside? Well, first off, I've got a couple very, very, very key things here. The most important chart of all is this one right here. Why is it going down? The point of this chart here, as funny as it is, and I hope you're laughing at this because we all need to be able to laugh at ourselves, is people are focused on this right here, this minuscule, what is this, a crash for ants? People forget about this long endeavored way to the upside, and they get so frustrated on these little dips. Now, the question is this a dip? Is this a dip worth buying? Is it going to go lower? What does this mean for alts? And could the top actually be in? Well, let's look at what we're seeing, because this morning, I shared this chart right here, actually, this one right here. And look at this. I said, watching the Bitcoin chart for 120K level and the 117K level. This is when we're up here, only starting to get a little bit of a dip. I talked about this. I posted this morning at about 9, what was this? That was 2:48 p.m. I shared one before that. I shared this with the community. I shared this. Oh, you know what it is? Let me look at this. Yeah, I shared this one at 9:50 a.m. Boom, that's what it is. 9:50 a.m. is because I quote tweeted it, highlighting these areas, these potential moves to the downside. And then what we've actually gotten is that exact move. We got that move coming down to that first target almost to perfection. And there was a couple things leading up to this dip that on a technical basis were foreshadowing it. Large bullish impulse right here, meaning look how large the bullish move is up here. Very quick, a little dip, rise, retrace, continuation. Now, what do we have on this next rip to the upside, this next pump? A larger move. So the bullish move is expanding here, meaning the bullish strength is getting stronger. The bearish strength is weakening on this time frame. Where we get a little dip. What do we get? Rise, retrace, continuation, retrace, continuation. Now we start to get a different story being told. And this narrative between the bulls and the bears. And what is that we're paying attention to? On this move here, this one is larger than this one, yet now all of a sudden we got a smaller smaller rip to the upside, smaller pump, meaning the bulls aren't as strong here, a little correction to the downside, an even smaller pump, a retrace that's almost the same size as that move, and then another move up that, I mean, look at the difference in these heights here. From this high to this high, big gap. From this high to this high, much smaller gap. This side of this one, smaller, yet again smaller, giving that rounding top. That's the price action level. Now, what do we look at on the data? Because we always want to look at other data points in addition to just looking at the price action. What do we see? We see bearish divergence going into that. That is basically from about right here, where that RSI peak is, right about right here, to over here, where we're getting much higher highs, and the strength is not as strong. It's weaker here, yet the price went higher. So we have a rounding top, meaning the bulls are losing steam. We have less strength in the chart, and we see the money rolling over, meaning there's not as much money in the ecosystem. There's starting to be money being pulled out of this asset. And then what do we see? Also with this collapse, we saw the money flow flip negative as well. So we're getting a couple different signs and signals that were in the charts. But was there other things? Are there other reasons? Because all of us are humans, even though we can look at the technical data, we need a reason for why is it dumping? Why is it not just pumping only to the moon, only up, up, and away? Well, when you consider this, OG Bitcoin Whale has just deposited over $364 million of Bitcoin to Hyperliquid. He already sold $39 million worth, over $39 million worth, and still has a lot to sell. I mean, subtract, basically 40 million from this, you still have about $320 million that could be poised to still have selling pressure in this market. For those who are unaware, the last time this well started selling, Bitcoin dropped nearly $9,000. To me, this is to me, it might not be to you, but I feel like there's more just whale games, free liquidity games, meaning people are seeing the over leveraged nature of different parts of this market. We saw last week where there was $2 billion in altcoins that were liquidated in the matter of hours, and then the market moved up. Similarly, right now, we saw the price moving up, the different data signals that we want to pay attention to, in addition to the price starting to show some divergences, some weakness. And we also see a huge amount of open interest and a lot of free liquidity that's in the charts of people seeing the price move up, and they go, I want to capture this all the way to the moon. And then the market comes down, wicks them out, completely washes them out, wipes out their leverage in the market, which is free liquidity in the chart. And then the market moves up without them. So do you want to be one of those people that is handing over all your capital? Now, again, I'm not saying don't leverage trade. I'm just saying that the majority of people that leverage trade do not realize that leverage trading is actually supposed to be a risk management tool. You're not supposed to trade a massive portion of your portfolio in leverage so that you can expand it. It's actually meant to help keep you having exposure in the market in a particular asset while not having to expose a huge sizable amount of your portfolio to that asset. For instance, if you have $100 million, you could trade $10 million on 10x leverage, and now you have $100 million of exposure in the market while you could still be trading opposite direction on spot, or vice versa, or not having anything else in spot and just getting exposure through leverage. And that way, if the market does move against you, you can cut your losses, you can have stop losses, or you can just leave it all there to be liquidated if you're not a smart trader. But the problem is, the majority of retail that comes in, they see these bells and whistles and they think that they understand how to ride the supercross dirt bike, and yet they've never even gotten on a bicycle with training wheels. Get yourself on some training wheels, be humble. And when you do trade and leverage, do not provide liquidity in the charts, because we're seeing it happen over and over again. And this is case in point right here from Crypto Seth. What we're seeing is that exact thing, liquidity above, meaning people were shorting. Why is the liquidity above if people are shorting? Because when you short the market, depending on if you're 2x, 3x, 5x, 10x, meaning you have $1,000, you're trading 10x, well, you're trading $10,000. You have $100,000, you're trading 10x, you're trading $1 million. Right? But you're borrowing that capital that is not your base, the margin that you're adding there. You're borrowing that from exchange technically. So what this means is that the price moves up and you bet short, meaning you bet the price was going to go down. then if the price moves up into a certain level, a certain threshold for different amounts of leverage in the market, then they're forced to close those shorts, which means they're forced to buy long. Close the shorts, closes out that position. And then you get these moves up. So what do we see? People bet this was getting too frothy. And what do we see? Price pushed up. Liquidated all, force closed all these positions. And then as this happened, price action moving down, you start seeing people as this comes into where the dip, price is running away. It's running away. So people start adding longs, it's running away. Oh yeah, we want to catch it. And then the market says, okay, now there's way more liquidity below us. Let's go down and tap that liquidity. So you get this cascade to the downside. Now, whether it was this specific whale or not, whether it was Binance doing some market making, who cares? The market is going to chop regardless of if you think it's right or wrong, or if it's market manipulation or not. If you're buying an asset and you hope it to go up and you're expecting it to go up, in a way, you are manipulating the market. So these major players are going to do it whether you think it's right or wrong, but there is a rhyme and a reason to how these things are doing. So when you're paying attention here on Discover Crypto, when you're watching Frankie Candles and Crypto Face and Drew and TJ and myself and DZ, and understanding that we're not just looking at this price is exciting, let's buy, or it's scary, let's sell. No, we're going to look at the data and the context around the market price so we can forecast what's going to happen, to be prepared, and also have tools in place to not get wrecked if it moves in the opposite direction from what we're expecting. Nobody expected the world to shut the entire global economy off back in March of 2020, and yet they did. All markets crashed, not just Bitcoin failing. No, all markets crashed. And then what happened? It turned out to be an incredible buying opportunity for those that were prepared. Unfortunately, a lot of people panic sold, only to see the market fiercely recorrect to the upside. Now, in this case, all of these leveraged longs liquidated. Okay, let's move up a bit. They were starting to see shorts pile up. Comes down, liquidated. But the question is, where are we at on that liquidation level? Let's, where is that chart? Boom, right here. Look at all the liquidity below us. Very hot liquidity zone above us as well, where people have started shorting over right coming into this. You can see the shorts stacking up, but then as prices move down, more and more people, there's more and more liquidity at the zone for people shorting. But a lot of leverage longs that could still be wiped coming, all the way down to 115, really all the way down to, look at this, there's a $95 million just on this one bar at 113,259. So what do we make of this? Because when we're looking at the price action in the market and we realize, let me come back over here. Remember 2 or 3 days ago, maybe it was even Friday last week, could have been, I don't remember when it was. I was talking about the average crypto RSI was in that overbought territory. And what happened? Look, boom, this is reset back down. So on the one hand, the market's pulling back in terms of prices. On the other hand, as somebody that's understanding what's coming, looking forward in this market, I'm excited when this happens because you get a reset of key indicators. It gives you more room to run to the upside when it does shake out the necessary people. The right bulls come in and defend an area, and you get a defended zone on that price action, and then the bullish momentum starts to take back over. Because when we're looking at this with Bitcoin down 2.68%, and you thought this was a crash, there's people that are really wondering, is the top in? Yeah, I titled that here because people are asking, they're sending questions. Hey, Kelly, is the top? It's because of the 4-year cycle, right? Top is in. Well, here's the deal. Even if it is in, we won't know it until something way more substantial than a minus 2.6% move. In 2017 alone, we saw 11 moves of 15% or more to the downside, corrections down before a rocketing higher. 8 of those moves were over 30%. 30 to like 45%. Here we are with a 2.6% move off all-time high, and people are losing their minds. Now, when we're looking at this, yes, we're seeing some people maybe taking profits, maybe manipulating, who knows? But we're going to look at the data and figure out what areas we need to pay attention to, where we can identify buys, and is there strength still here? Because we're seeing major crypto funds. Crypto funds saw a record, almost $6 billion in net inflows last week. This surpassed the previous record by over $1 billion. Investors poured the most capital into Bitcoin funds at 3.55 billion, followed by 1.48 billion into Ethereum funds. Year to date, Ethereum has now seen a record of $13.7 billion. This is not chump change anymore. We're seeing the world power players getting involved, and a lot of high net worth individuals and a lot of retail like us, which at some point in the near future, many of you are going to have exponential amount more capital in your portfolio than you do now. But the question is, will you do the right things now so that can be a possibility? Unfortunately, most of us aren't smart enough to learn from other people's mistakes, so we mess this up. And it's not just crypto funds. What do we also see? We see Deloitte. Check this out. Tokenization is redefining finance. Sounds like some buzzwords, but what is he talking about? A new survey shows 99%. That is all but 1%. Only 1% doesn't agree with this. Of North American chief financial officers expect to use crypto or tokenized assets soon, nearly universal adoption in under 2 decades. Soon to nearly universal adoption in under 2 decades. 99% of North American chief financial officers, meaning they're going to have a great deal in shaping what business directions are and integrations and implementations and new policies. 99% of CFOs in the North America expect to use crypto or tokenized assets very soon. So this is what we're talking about. I think there's a bit more clarity that needs to come from the market structure bill, from what's going on with some of the things in government right now, with some small gray areas that are still getting flushed out. But this is overwhelmingly bullish. And yet we come over here to Bitcoin and we go, oh my God, it's crashing. It's crashing, everybody. It's crashing. It's dropped a mere 4.5% from that top. But if you go to the daily, you notice, look at this. On the daily, we're down 2.1%. I mean, guys, let's cool our heads. There's opportunity when you don't get emotional about a move and you have a strategy already in place to barricade yourself from doing something stupid, or understand what's happening in the market and have dry powder on the sideline, or a target area that you're going to buy, or just realize as it's dropping, even if you have no dry powder, that you're not going to chop yourself out. Now you have to do what's right for you in this market. Buy it cheap and stack it deep, says Southern Stacker. What a great post there. That's right. That's it. Retail screaming bloody murder. I'm buying at $100,000. Well, hey, if we get there, I think that would be a major shakeout in the market, but I'd be a buyer there as well. Shout out to everybody here. Again, as you all roll in, and we got 1,791 people watching between YouTube and X and my X and the BitLab X, BitLab YouTube. We're across 4 different spots right now. I'd love to see each and every one of you again. Do you think this is a dip, or do you think meaning on dip? Let me say this. Do you think that this dip where we're at is going to hold above $115,000? Or do you think the price on Bitcoin is going to, in this move, I'm not saying sometime in the future, in this move, do you think we're going to break down below and get better deals below $115,000? I'm curious what your thoughts are, and drop the comment down below if you're watching somewhere else or later. Could let me know. I got some other stuff here as well. Check this out. I'm sure you saw this story, but there's an update. S&P 500 launches Digital Markets 50 Index. This is 15 different crypto and 35 crypto facing or integrated businesses to provide diversified exposure to Bitcoin and crypto. But check it out. What is it? Powered by Avalanche. I did not see that this morning. So we're seeing a lot more integrations and deployment of bringing tokenized assets on chain, not just Ondo, not just Injective, not just Avalanche, but also Kraken, and also a number of Solana. There's a number of assets out there that are really just fighting tooth and claw to bring the world on chain. And it doesn't need to be one chain. One chain doesn't need to be the predominant only one that does it. This drives incredible, fierce sort of competition for getting the best of the best and developing new strategies and different ways and technical ways to integrate and implement this. So this is very good for the ecosystem. Southern Stacker says 108 to 115. Do you guys agree with that? Throw a 1 if you agree, throw a 2 if you don't agree. Donnie Bennett says normal dip. Remco Voss says 114 to 115. Shout out to you. I'm watching all y'all's comments, so let's get into it, guys. But this is just good because as we're looking at this baby pullback, people are losing their minds, and we're getting stories. First off, price going to levels that we highlighted this morning. Some whale games here. Cool. Massive liquidations. Understandable that the price went to all of this super bright colors down here where all the liquidity is. It's the price is like a moth to a flame. Huge flame down here. The price came over here to the flame. Now we're starting to get a major flame above us, aka like a magnet for price to revert back to. But the question is, what's going to happen before that happens? And that's what we're trying to illuminate right now. And then remembering the bullish narrative, the bullish demand that's coming in from capital flowing into funds. This is only getting more and more bullish. And then 99% of CFOs expecting to use CFOs, chief financial officers, 99% expecting to use crypto and tokenized assets very soon in the near future. And then we got the S&P 500, also tokenized on Avalanche. I'm just recapping for some of you that might have come in late because all of us get in at different times. But these are amazingly bullish stories on a day that we're having a dip. And people are sincerely messaging me saying, Kelly, is it top end? Should I be selling everything? Should I? And now do I have to wait a year and a half because of a 4-year cycle? Meanwhile, I'm seeing overwhelming bullishness in the landscape of what's happening. Then we look to ETFs. Not enough people are talking about this, but the Bitcoin ETFs just recorded their single highest weekly inflow at $3.24 billion. Institutional interest is back on the rise. So we're in overwhelming bull territory. Great. And then we got, don't forget this, coming into where we're at right now. We just had the Bitcoin accumulation addresses, which I've been highlighting here over the last many months. I've been highlighting this for years, but specifically what we've seen in this live, basically all of 2025, is, and this also, I would think, has something to do with the new crypto-friendly administration. The appetite now is opening up here. We're seeing the Bitcoin accumulator addresses, wallets, Bitcoin wallets on chain, where you can see as Bitcoin have moved into those addresses, I think it's 75% or more has never moved or doesn't move over a pretty large period of time. AKA, these wallets buy and hold. And they've increased dramatically, stacking at the fastest pace in history. This does not happen into a market cycle top. I mean, it happened here, but look at where that was. That was a bottom. It happened here. What was that? Before the slingshot. It happened here. People didn't believe this was, going into the bear market. This was an expected, kind of like here, going to get that next leg up. And it didn't happen. But then we got the persistent sort of kind of sideways action, sort of static action here on those accumulation addresses. Really came in here when we popped up here the 74,000. This is right as the ETFs went online. But what we're seeing here is a monumental shift in the behavior of the types of wallets that don't sell, aka the wallets that are stacking major amounts of Bitcoin. Means there's a huge amount more illiquid Bitcoin available in the market. Illiquid Bitcoin is, yes, it's in circulation, but statistically, it's very unlikely to move because there's market movement, meaning it starts to increase the effect of demand that does come in. Because not only do we have overwhelming demand coming in that's already outpacing new supply, we're getting that at an exponential rate, but we're also getting major amounts of stacking into basically creating higher amounts of illiquid supply, further driving that the supply and demand aspect that you consider, which is what drives price. And then you look, the other half of illiquid supply is what's available on exchanges. Bitcoin on exchanges at a 7-year low. What else we got? It's more and more bullish, guys. Did you know? Fidelity projects that by 2032, 42%. Let me say that again. By 2032, almost half of Bitcoin circulating supply, meaning Bitcoin that is out there in the world in wallets, almost half of Bitcoin circulating supply may be illiquid, locked away in long-term holder wallets and corporate treasuries, aka it's not out there day trading. It's not out there trading because there's a bad news story. They're not selling, and they're buying, stacking, holding long-term. That's 8.3 million Bitcoin effectively removed from day-to-day markets. This is what we're seeing. The growth, the maturity in the market that's come in from 2010, 2015, 2020, 2025. What we're focused on here is this establishment of the illiquid supply, the orange portion of this pie chart, 14% in 2020, double 2025 in 5 years, double. And what the pace that we're seeing ETF stack, corporate treasury stack, and this doesn't even take into account the fact that the very high likelihood in the next, 2, 4, 8, 10 years, the speed and rate of change and growth that we're going to start seeing from states, sovereign, like global sovereign bodies. We already see El Salvador do it. We already know Bhutan's mining. We know the U.S. is holding stuff we've confiscated. Are we going to start, taking some gold and buying Bitcoin? Are we going to start using tariffs to buy Bitcoin? I do think we will get some sort of regular Bitcoin buys that come into the strategic Bitcoin reserve at some point. And I think it's going to be a nation state race, especially from the major players like almost said like Bitcoin, like US, China, of course, at some point. It's going to come to their senses about what they're doing here. But surprisingly so, they have estimated almost the same amount as the U.S. does from confiscations and mining. But then you also have got Japan. You also have Australia. You got Germany, which just sold. Oh, they sold at $57,000. What are you doing? But I do think we're going to start seeing that race to stack in ways that we cannot even comprehend. And then we come back to the price. But there's a pullback today. Let's stop being, and I'm not going to use foul language, stop being B, and I got to itch. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'll say there. Trying to be a little bit more godly, a little bit more worldly, a little bit more acceptable to myself. You know what I mean? Because I can be quite crass sometimes, trying to polish it up a little bit. But then we think about the markets. We're getting a pullback today, and yet on Bitcoin, and then stocks today. These stocks, all of these hit new yearly highs at some point today. IBM just jumped like a rocket ship with their news on some sort of partnership with Anthropic. Dell, major move to the upside. Palo Alto, Raytheon, Rocket Lab, DoorDash, Monster. I mean, I don't need to read these all out. You get it. There is a weird exuberance in this market considering people that are paying attention to the economic data and what's happening on the governmental level, the management level. The only thing that can happen next, no matter what they say to you, is a mind-blowing money print that is coming. And it's not just the U.S., it's the world over. We're going to see another major sort of jolt in inflation in the coming years. You have to, if you want to, at minimum, not get drowned without having a future because you have no time because you have to work because all your money's been devalued. You have to find an investment that you believe in, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum or Chainlink or Vanguard or QQQ, or don't care what it is. You cannot keep up the pace of what's going on with inflation unless you invest. So if you are going to then invest, why not look at the best asset class of our time that also is signaling this turning into the digital blockchain age? That is Bitcoin, and then many of these other top altcoins that we're talking about. But none of the altcoins are guaranteed to make it. And you could argue Bitcoin's not guaranteed to make it either, but it's already so entrenched in the global financial power players that I'm pretty confident Bitcoin's going to be around. Ethereum, I'm pretty confident it's going to be around as well. What shape it takes as we have all these competing different L1s and narratives out there. And then you realize the majority of these L1s that are out there are built on Ethereum. So yeah, Ethereum is pretty safe. Chainlink is integrating the traditional world into and onto the blockchain, as well as creating this interoperability and cross-chain CCIP, the standard cross-chain interoperability between tokens and TradFi and data services. We got it's Solana. Guys, BNB. Yeah, BNB is. I will say the caveat with BNB being a exchange token is, there are people out there that think, well, do they actually have the exchange reserves that they say that they do? Are they really holding? Is it third party? Is it going to be another FTT? I don't personally have that take, but I am aware of it. But BNB does have a massive community. I mean, it's up like 30% this week. Massive. And then you remember, Kelly, why is the market pulling back today? Gee, golly whiz. We just moved up $17,000 in 10 days, over $17,000. In this case, it probably would have been 18 because I drew this before we were above 126. It took almost 9 years to Bitcoin to achieve a price above $17,000. From zero to in 2016, it was in hundreds into the mid 4,500, and then went from 4,500 up to $19,000 in 3 months in that parabola. But it took 8 or 9 years for it to achieve that. We just did that in 10 days, and people go, "Why isn't it still moving up?" Let it breathe. Let other people have opportunity. You have opportunity if you realize that this creates the scenario for dips to exist. And not only does it create the scenario, because you get all these over leveraged hype buyers going leverage long and they want to ride straight, then the market washes them out. And for those that are paying attention to the data, they're there to buy. And if most of the market still agrees with that, and you still have that forward trajectory of the market, you're going to get a lot of buyers come in and you get that slingshot continuing to the upside. So let's be a little bit patient here, guys. Let's be a little bit patient. The one thing I will say, out of everything that, there's out of the 30 on-chain indicators, instead of the top cycle indicators, none of them flashed. Well, I do have to acknowledge this. With the price breaking above 117,000, over 95% of the circulating supply has returned to profit. Well, that's good. Most people are in profit. Well, remember, the market tends to humble the most people regularly. This is the hallmark of a euphoria phase. Does that mean it's over? No, it means we're getting into the most explosive part of the phase, but also the part of the cycle where most people get wrecked because they're trading, buying and selling too much signal by the emotion. I'm excited about this. I want more. So you either don't sell or you're buying the hype. Or I'm scared of this. You sell and then it slingshots up further. Do not trade, buy, and sell excitement and fear. That's not how you get ahead in this market. And I'm just highlighting this because we are at this level, the orange line here, where you can see, even here, look, it was all the way up here. Price still pushed higher to a new all-time high. It was all the way up here. This was an early cycle, sort of peak-ish, that went sideways for 7 months with $17,000 to $20,000 swings before this fully kind of reset down in here. And then we got all the way up here. The cycle's over. Everybody's in profit. Reset, slingshot higher. I do think we're going to see kind of a continuation of this whole kind of trend that we've seen into in my opinion, into the next couple of years. I do think we're going to have a big washout at some point, and that washout may be sideways with a bunch of $30,000, $40,000 chops back and forth. I don't know. We can't know. But I see the landscape of everything that we went to get through. Yes, we're coming down to a level we talked about, but the fact that there's a whale out there selling some stuff, the fact that there's so much liquidity below us made sense. If I was a big whale, I'd be like, hey man, I'm going to drop the price. I'm going to go down there and arbitrage and go get some cheaper Bitcoin because the market's going to be panicked, but the landscape is so bullish. So I'm confident it is going to continue to rise. And then we see this right here. Bitcoin's cost basis distribution shows thin support between 121 and 120. That's also the price level that I highlighted as the first one based on TA. Just turns out that the cost basis distribution also showed that there wasn't a lot that was bought between that 120 and 121. And then there's a key cluster now near 117 where almost 200,000 Bitcoin were last bought. So a pullback into that area could attract demand as recent buyers may defend that level, let alone what's going on in the narrative in the market. So what we're seeing here, and I'm doing this literally just on the TA, but check it out. All 1, 2, 3, 4 levels right here. That's why I have the line here, even though deviation above, it's not true. Well, look at how many lines respected, rejections respected that. And then look at this. Look where the price currently came down to and bounced. Does that mean it's over? Well, the next level down is this previous range high. So we have these range highs and then this range high here. It would not shock me. In fact, I kind of expect it makes a lot of sense if this were to bounce, trap some more people, and then come down and then wash people out, maybe even below that, and then come in and then start making our next leg to the upside. But we're going to have to see how it plays out. But the Bitcoin cost basis distribution shows that there's a lot of liquidity interest around here where a lot of buyers have bought. Now, why? Because you have this level here. You have this price, these candles here, these candles here, these candles here, all of these candles here. So there's a lot of volume that traded across that zone. So it stands to reason that there may be quite a bit of liquidity also that may come in and defend this area in the 116 to 118 range on Bitcoin. And on the daily, RSI got all the way up here. Let's let it cool off a little bit. Let's look at it like on the 8 hour, all the way up here, came down. If this is able on the 8 hour, even if this is able to maintain above the 50 line on a correction, and again, watch for a move up that fails and comes down and wrecks. And I'm not saying that has to happen, but it happens more often than not. But we're watching here. If the RSI is able to stay very firmly above this 50 line, it becomes less likely this is going to break down. But what we're seeing right now is the money flow did come down, but it's kind of starting to bottom here. So we're going to want to see how this plays out. On the 4 hour, you see that the RSI already came below. Look at this. The RSI already came below the 50 line, meaning this is where strength is in control. This is where weakness is in control. It is flushed down. Now, this does not mean weakness is in control and strength is over, because as it stands, the RSI is flashed down into here. If this is able to come back up like this and then go like that, that may be a reset for the next move. If this moves up very weak and comes back down and loses, then we're in for a little bit bigger of a correction. This is how you use the data along with the price to see how things are corresponding with what's going on. Now, getting back over to where we were, right here. The dollar index, boring, right? Well, the dollar just reclaimed its 14-year trend line. So there is some concern in the risk market, that if this does bounce like it has before, like this didn't even get to it, but like it has before, this is not good for risk markets. When the dollar is pumping, in some ways, you can take it to be akin to also in some ways people moving out of risk assets into the dollar. So not seeing the stock market fly, not seeing Bitcoin fly, and all of a sudden the dollar takes this rally. I'm kind of looking at this, and this is a trend line. We have to respect it, but the market hasn't been, as of in the last week or two, has kind of been doing its own thing relative to the dollar. But what you'll see over time is they do have a pretty tight inverse correlation. It feels like, especially with what gold is doing, like there's a higher likelihood that this will break down. But I will acknowledge that could be a bullish risk bias that I have because I see the landscape of Bitcoin and it's got to go up. Then I'm thinking, well, that means that the dollar must go down. But we're also looking at what's going on in the bond market in Japan with the new prime minister, the stimulus that's likely coming in, the fact that there's already been hints that we may be getting a stimulus here in the U.S. next year. Talk about buying an election, right? But we'll see what that means and how the dollar does respond. Because when we're looking at other things, like for instance, gold has been on a 54% increase just in 2025. I talked about this the other day. This does, I don't want to say suppress what's happening in Bitcoin. In some ways it helps it in some ways, but a lot of the gold buyers out there aren't necessarily just choosing between Bitcoin and gold. We're seeing a lot of nation states also stacking into gold because of the loss of confidence in the dollar, but also wanting something outside that system. But I do think that this has historically kind of front ran what we've seen in Bitcoin. And this is still running. So there's not a lot of capital rotation that's happened from this yet. But this also goes back to what I was just talking about with the dollar, that I do feel more likely than not like the dollar is going to fall, minus some bounce that we might get here. I do think it's going to break that line. And then we get over to something very important right here. What is this? Bitcoin has not broken to new all-time highs. We actually have a giant head and shoulders. Is that scary? Well, I don't necessarily think so. I don't think this is going to break down unless gold goes to $15,000 in the next 6 months, which I don't really see happening. But this is from Dave Weisberger. It says, unpopular opinion, the Bitcoin bull market has not even started yet. So this is actually bullish. The proper measure in Bitcoin priced in gold, not dollars. On that metric, there have been 3 bull markets, 2013, 2017, 2021. 2025 is not even back to the previous bull market. So you see the price right here. Bitcoin's price, priced in gold, grams of gold. This is where we were back here in 2021. We barely, in 2025, we barely have gotten back above the previous range highs that we saw on the tops in 2021 and 2022. But Kelly, the price went higher. You're right, in US dollars. This is why it's important to look at things in different pairs, meaning the price are weighed against if it was priced in another asset. So we see this as it's playing out right now. Does this mean once this, which may be something like we're seeing here, obviously much different shape, are we going to get a very large parabolic move, in this case, weight in gold, which would be insane with what we'd be seeing on the dollar, meaning price in dollars. And then again, it's not just Bitcoin, guys. Ethereum's making strides. We just talked about gold, but check this out. $2.7 billion worth of tokenized gold now sits on Ethereum. We talked about what happened with the Denari thing earlier with S&P 500, the crypto 50 index that they're doing. 15 crypto, 35 different crypto integrated companies. Tokenized on Avalanche. Here we see Ethereum. We know what Ondo's doing with all their tokenized US treasuries as well. There's over 100 different power player assets out there that they're bringing on chain. And then you see this, Grayscale, adding staking to ETH and SOL. They did that this morning, apparently, on their electronically traded products. It's like another version of ETF, essentially. Expect institutional inflows to explode. Does that mean tomorrow it's going 47x? No. Understand that these things are all just becoming aware of to the Wall Street players out there. This is setting a foundation that is going to change the entire landscape of global finance. And I'm not saying this specifically. I'm saying what we're seeing with blockchain, the integrations with crypto, the smart contract capabilities, real world asset tokenization, global remittances. The world is changing in front of our eyes, and people are wondering why we get a 3% dip on, after 10 days of a 17,000% rip. There's so many gifts being given to you right now in this market. One of those might be learning patience. This market is moving at light speed comparatively with what you see in traditional markets. And yet people are going, well, why am I not rich now? I've been in 3 months. Why am I not rich now? I've already been in 3 years. If you can make decent amount of money, I'm talking like not life-changing, but a decent amount of money within 3 years, within 5 years, even under 10 years, external from your job, your other capital flow thing. It's astronomical what you can do here. And the rate of acceleration that's going to be coming here in the very near future, that's already taking place. We just can't see it because we're impatient. I hate all altcoins, says Dave Middleton. Shout out to you. Let's trade. Box to box. How you doing? Sell your gold and buy silver. You're going to put it on sale? Or are you going to say sell? I'll tell you what, I misspell at least one word in every post that I do per day on X. And I try to reread them, and I always end up messing stuff up. So getting back to Bitcoin, because why are you looking at my altcoin chart right now? Because you see what happened with Bitcoin, the spill, because this is what we're seeing in the market. This is in the driver's seat. So if you have this, understand that this is in the driver's seat. Now we can look at levels, but I would hope that you already have levels outlined of areas that you'd be looking to add to a position or buy a dip or lower a higher entry if you have one. But in this case, okay, rounded to, look at this, up and to the right, higher highs. What do we see on the RSI? It gave the signal, bearish divergence, meaning these highs are lower, 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 lower. Well, these highs were higher, 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 higher. Price was pushing up, but there wasn't as much strength. What happens next? A washout. Boom. Now where it's at right now is right in line. Look, a lot of liquidity, a lot of price memory of, look at this, rejection, support, rejection, rejection, support, rejection, support. So much price interactivity at this level. Now, does that mean it has to hold there? No, it can. It very well might, but we need to let this sort of market sentiment shakeout kind of mature a little bit and say, if this does push up, I'd be watching one. I'd be watching the middle of this band about right here. If this pushes up here and gets rejected and comes down, I think we're coming down. If this loses this, meaning it loses, breaks below, oops, there we go, breaks below and comes up and rejects, comes down, then I think we're coming down to about $4,200. Why? Because that's the next level on the chart. All you have to do is move your mouse down and see how I have the crossbars where you can see it going all the way across the chart. Where's the next level? It's right here. And in fact, you kind of have this right here. Look at that. These lows, these highs. So this would be that next area of interest for, I think, would be a pretty darn good dip buying opportunity, in my opinion. I don't know what's right for your portfolio. You have to make that decision. But look, RSI is coming down, resetting, giving us more room to run. Look at what happened when RSI, oh my God, it crashed. But what happened? It gave a great dip buying opportunity where the price crashed. The RSI came down, reset. In so doing, we also got a bullish divergence on the money flow right here that started here. Option V. Look at this. So we see the money flow is low here. Okay, let the price is falling. Cool. Look at this. Money flow is getting a little higher. So look at this. Oh, it drops again. Look at this. Money flow is a little higher. RSI, very oversold. 2 in a row. So at this level, we're about right here where this is about to clip back up just on those two signals alone. That would have been a good buy opportunity. In that case, oh my God, it crashed. But it also, for those paying attention, if you bought there, you had another opportunity here that actually had data behind it. And then you also had a move that, where is that? There we go. Then you also had a move that went up 24% from that reset. So if this comes down into the zone, you have a higher low throughout, meaning still very bullish trend. The RSI will likely get a better reset. And now you're starting from a higher vantage point to take the next swing to the upside. Again, that's if we break down, but you want to see what levels are on the horizon if that were to happen. And realize if Ethereum drops from 4,400 down to 4,200, many of your alts, I mean, let's look at that. That's not a huge drop. That's 5% drop. Many of your alts are going to drop 7%, 14%, 30%, depending on where they're at in the market cap, right? How big the asset is, and also what they have going on in their narrative at the time, meaning the asset niche that they're in. So we see Link, I mean, still just kind of chopping sideways here. Look at this. Still basically bull flagging out right at a multi-year trend line. What do you mean multi-year trend line, Kelly? This trend line goes all the way back to 2021. So it makes sense. It takes some work to get out of there. Things are setting up, guys. And surprisingly, earlier today, Dog was the best performing asset in my portfolio. It fell like everything else. Now it's fallen a little more, but earlier it was, but look at that. If we look at this on a 4-hour falling channel, broke out, cool. But look at where the price went to. Price went right into this chop zone where all of this chop before. Makes sense. Money flow really getting sucked out. And yet the price is still relatively holding in that zone. That's bullish to me. This is a bit of a bull flag, but it's starting to look more like a Bart Simpson pattern. If that were to play out, we'll do it from down here. That would be a pretty nice move. But this is looking more like a Bart Simpson pattern. We see the move up, chop. So it would make sense if we got a little bit of a flush down here. And if that flush down comes to about right here, that would be right testing these highs here, these lows here, this bottom here, right? And you'd be now breaking out, coming back to the scene of the crime, meaning this is where it broke out of this downtrend resistance and retesting this for another great opportunity and a much higher low there, setting up for the next leg higher. Aerodrome. Same thing. Look at that. Why is Dog crashing? Well, let's look at Aerodrome. Same damn look. AV&T. I mean, this is getting into really good buy opportunities below my entries now. So you guys can be in a better position than I'm in. We got a bit of a falling kind of, let's see. It's kind of like, there we go. Yeah. Bit of a falling wedge here, kind of through this chop zone, and I had this marked out the other day, potential move. If we do get a little bit of a washout down, which it actually be in line with everything I've been talking about. This pattern is bullish. These tend to break out bullishly. too many people expect that. These patterns have more often than not broken out down, then come back up and gone up like that. So be careful for that move to happen. The money flow is coming out. RSI is getting all the way. Look at this. This is the lowest RSI has been. So are we coming into, potential bit of a bottom? Well, right now it's about patience, letting the things come to you, identifying your levels. But we saw the landscape in this video. Go back, watch the whole thing if you saw it all. If you didn't see it all, really great charts at the beginning. Drop a comment down below as this wraps, not necessarily in the live chat here, as this wraps, whether you're watching on YouTube or X, drop a comment below. What do you think is the best dip buying opportunity that's presenting right now? And it's got to be in the top 150. Don't do some nonsense, random coin. What do you think is the best opportunity right now? I'm curious, but I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. I do want to shout out our partners, BitcoinIRA.com, and of course, Arculus. If you're doing all this day trading, might as well. It's smart. It's silly if you don't take a very honest approach at the way you're trading. And if you are trading for the long term and you're trading altcoins into Bitcoin and things like that, why take 20, 30, 40% tax hits on your short-term, trading tax, right? Trading gains. You could trade up to 80 cryptocurrencies here, rotate them into Bitcoin, basically save yourself that enormous amount of tax you have to pay on those for those short-term held coins that you're trading. But I'm not the tax expert. Give them a call, 1-877-936-7175. And I'll be doing spaces, and it won't be specifically on Bitcoin IRA, but I'll be doing a spaces on Thursday night, 5:30 p.m. To break down what's going on in the market. We're going to have some other big guests on as well. So keep your eyes open for that. And also remember, just Arculus. I'm going to drop you an Arculus ad as we're wrapping this out. I love you guys. I appreciate you. With that being said, adios, muchachos.
We just wanted to take a quick second to shout out our sponsor, Arculus. They are a cold storage hardware wallet, helps you secure all of your digital assets for the future. Just tap this thing to the back of your phone and boom, you're in. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, but also wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, the Disco fam. You've supported us a lot over the years. If you want to support the channel now, just use the code DC20. It gets you 20% off this card. It's the #1 way you can support this channel going forward. Thank you for your support. We'll see you at the top.